Hello, everyone. My name is Jodi Lyons. I'm your host of Your Need to Know. And first things first, I would like to give a heartfelt congratulations to our producer, Ben Zuhl. I have just heard that Your Need to Know was voted the #1 news show of 2016 by Fairfax County Public Access. So Ben and crew, congratulations, and thank you for everything you've done. And now to get on with our show today. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with Tim Treanor, who has written a phenomenal book called Capital City, and it's a political thriller. So Tim, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Jodi, and let me say two things. First of all, congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
I'm not in the Fairfax jurisdiction, but I have seen your show on YouTube, or several episodes of your show, and I've got to tell you, I'm not surprised. It's well produced, well thought out. Your questions are intelligent and vital, and you have good guests.
Thank you.
I saw the Sam Simon episode.
Yes.
I saw Sam's show in the Capitol Fringe.
Excellent.
And it was nice to see how you brought it to life, you and Sam both.
Outstanding, thank you.
The other thing that I want to say is that I've co-authored Capital City with Lee Hurwitz.
Yes, we do not want to leave Lee out of this.
Yeah, Lee is a highly intelligent, very thoughtful guy, and a dream to work with.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because certainly I like him too, and we certainly don't want to leave Lee out of this.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you, I had one overarching question.
Please.
How did you decide to write this book?
Well, I wish I could fully answer that, but...
Because you're a lawyer, aren't you?
I am.
Okay.
I am. But
From
the fact
lawyer
of the
to
matter,
author, yes.
The fact of the matter is that it was Lee's draft that we began with. One day, I was at a convention of the Washington Independent Writers, and as I was about to leave, dreaming of having my own stuff published by somebody somewhere, Lee got on the elevator with me. And as we went down, he literally gave me an elevator pitch.
Oh, seriously?
He told about this story, which sounded intriguing. And he said that he was really inexperienced as a writer and he was looking for a collaborator. And I wasn't sure I wanted to do that because I had my own stuff. And then he said the magic words, "I have an agent."
And we all know how important those words are. And in full disclosure, you and I share the same agent.
That's right. We share the agent, the fabulous Diane Nye.
Absolutely.
And the agent is more than important, I think. The agent is crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Without an agent, you're essentially barred from the publishing world.
Well, that's absolutely true. And I've also found she is the person who keeps us, well, sane would be kind of a loosely defined term, but keeps you on deadline, makes you do what you need to do, and walks you through all the scary pitfalls of writing. So absolutely.
Sane is probably too much responsibility, at least in my case. but yes, Diane is extraordinarily disciplined, but she's a lot of fun too.
Oh, absolutely she is. Yeah. Absolutely. So those were the magic words. And then,
so I took a look at Lee's draft, and I thought it had good bones, but I also thought we could jazz up some of the characters, introduce a few plot lines that were kind of implied, but deserve to be brought out. And now we have it. We have the story that we both wanted to tell.
Well, and I love it. I have to tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed reading the book. I kind of saved it. I got it at one of your initial book launch parties, and I had been hoarding the book, waiting until I could just sit and quietly enjoy it. It's been my guilty pleasure. So I've thoroughly enjoyed this. For the audience's sake, can you just take me through the basic outline? What is the general plot?
All right.
Well, I know there are many subplots, so
I
free rein here. Go ahead, Tim.
I think I know what you're getting at. I want you to imagine, I know this is very difficult, but work with me here. I want you to imagine a corrupt mayor of Washington, D.C. And one day he's doing a very, very bad thing in his office. But unbeknownst to him, somebody else is in his office. She's come in earlier in order to steal a bid, and she sees the whole thing. And she's so horrified that she blurts her way through the office and out the door in front of the mayor and his minions. And so he sends one of his minions after her to kill her. And then nothing is as it's supposed to be, because they're humans and they act unpredictably. So the minion, who is a fellow with an anger management problem.
That's putting it mildly, yes.
Is nonetheless a huge romantic. And he falls in love with his prey. His prey is no victim. She's shrewd and manipulative, and she realizes that she can have a terrific payoff. And by the time the mayor realizes his mistake, he calls for a professional hitman who is, unfortunately for him, also a stone lunatic, obsessed with Michael Dukakis. So after that, everybody acts in the bizarre and human way that people do under extraordinary circumstances, and we roll to a conclusion which is bizarre and yet just.
Well, I have to tell you, I got a good chuckle out of the plot line with Michael Dukakis. I worked on his presidential campaign when I was younger, and I love to see the stories brought back to life. It brought wonderful memories back to me. But I loved the plot twists. I loved how things were set here in Washington. One of the things that really struck me, Tim, was there seemed to be so much reality involved. I mean, it was accurate. The buildings are where the buildings are supposed to be. Did you actually travel around town to make sure you were being accurate, or how did you make sure that even though it's fictionalized and artistic, it was real?
Well, let me say two things about that. First of all, I have to give credit to Lee, who is a former employee of the city of Washington, and who knows a great deal about its operation, its location in space, its effect on other private entities in the city. And much of this information came from him. But the real answer to your question, as far as I'm concerned, is, I know this is terribly unromantic, but is Google. I was hit at
explain
Google.
that.
Yes. Anything that I wanted to establish that wasn't established in the text, I simply looked up using computerized information systems, primarily Google.
That's
and
terrific.
Verified. Well, the interesting thing is that what I had to do was verify what happened in 1988. I can't be having buildings that were put up 5 years ago in the story.
Right. And that's what I found amazing. I mean, it really was real. It was that you could go drive down the street and see the building. And yes, I did.
I'll tell you honestly, I think that's the obligation of an author. The author wants to bring the reader into the fictive dream. He wants to convince the reader to leave behind his mundane reality,
Right.
and enter the world of the story. And in order to do that, you have to make it as convincing and believable as you can. And
Suspend your disbelief, but yours, we didn't have to disbelieve.
Yeah, I'm hoping not. I mean, we don't have a mayor who's ordered a hit, as far as I know. And there are some other elements of the book
We hope
which are,
that some of them are fictionalized.
yes, they're intended to be fictional. As with all stories, I suppose, we'll never really know. But the obligation of any author is to make true what is true, and require the reader to abandon as much abandon as little reality as he has to get into the world of the story.
I love it. That sounds perfect.
Thank you.
So, what was your as I cough here? What was your favorite part of writing the book?
Well,
So we're both coughing.
Yeah, it's contagious. It was, well, there were a couple of things that I really enjoyed, and one of them was introducing some new characters. One of the characters I introduced was the professional hitman, P. Traum, who not only is obsessed with Michael Dukakis, but is also prepared to kill for the honor of the late Leonard McCoy, the actor who played. I'm sorry, the late Leonard McCoy was the character. The late DeForest Kelley, who played the character of Leonard McCoy in Star Trek. That was another one of Pete Traum's obsessions, and he's got a series of obsessions that revolve around the fact that he really loves his work. And there's not many people who can claim that.
Exactly, but he loves his work of being a hitman, which is kind of entertaining.
Yes, that's right. And he's really gratified when he gets to exercise his art, particularly when he's paid, but even when he isn't.
So even when he's not paid, so he could be the unpaid professional hitman and still enjoy it.
The trick of writing, I think, is that it's not much different from acting. You have to be sympathetic with your characters.
Yes.
If you write a character who's nothing but a bad guy, then you're writing a cartoon.
Right, it can't be one-dimensional.
Yeah, exactly so. And if you want a story that people can really get into, then you have to get into each one of your characters. When I write, before I start on the story, I write little short stories about the characters. The short stories may not be any good, they're often terrible, but the idea is to make me acquainted with the person that I'm writing about.
You're doing the backgrounder.
Yes.
And the character development. And I think that's some of the hardest, is to actually define your character in such a way that you still want to write that character.
You're absolutely right, Jodi, but it's absolutely crucial. And I will say that once you get your characters down, the story almost writes itself.
Yes.
I had an interview once with Edward Albee, the great playwright. And one of the things that he told me was that he never starts on a play until he feels that he can have dinner with each one of his characters.
I love it. So, Tim, we're going to go to break right now, and I just want to remind everybody we are talking about the book, we're talking about the book Capital City, available on Amazon, I assume?
Amazon, it's in Books A Million, it's at Politics and Prose. You can get it at Barnes & Noble as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
When it comes to saving money,
What?
don't act like a baby.
Oh, it's like they're having their own little meeting. This is so humiliating.
Be the boss
I'm the boss.
What the?
Power nap. You were saying.
and make a budget.
Let's get to work.
Need a little help?
Stacy, read back the notes.
I can't read. What's it say?
Create a personalized savings plan and get other tools and tips
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
at feedthepig.org.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Your Need to Know. Again, I'm thrilled to be here with Tim Treanor, who's written Capital City, and we will remember to acknowledge Lee Hurwitz, who's your co-author, who couldn't be here with us today. So, Tim, I'm loving every minute of your book. And before we talk about the book a little bit more, I'm wondering for people out there who are aspiring authors, do you have any advice on how to start?
Well, the first piece of advice I have to an aspiring author is to prepare for disappointment, because it's an arduous, difficult, frustrating enterprise. And really, it should not be undertaken unless you feel the compulsion to write. Be persistent. I remember when I was a kid and just starting out as a writer, I did it, and I felt really compelled to write like the salmon is compelled to swim upstream.
Right.
That was Norman Mailer's phrase. And so I thought, I'd write this thing, I'd send it to a publisher, and it would be published, and I would be on the Today Show, and then also I'd be giving seminars on how to write like me, and then I'd get something nice from the King of Sweden.
There you go.
Yeah, but it turned out that it didn't work that way. And I remember reading things from famous authors who said, don't be discouraged. I've papered my wall with rejection letters.
I saved them all.
Yeah.
Now mine are in electronic format, but yes.
Yeah.
But what I've always said, though, is each rejection gets you closer to the one you're supposed to be with.
As it turns out, it didn't feel to me like the progression was under my control. All I faced was rejection after rejection, sometimes from publishers when I didn't know anything, and after that from agents. The agents' rejections were much more polite.
That's true.
They would say, I just didn't fall in love with your story. So at that point, my writing life paralleled my dating life.
It is so true. It is so true, isn't it?
Yeah. And then just once it happened. This piece, and I have to say that Lee and Diane's persistence had a great deal to do with it. This piece found a publisher. And as I look back at it, I say to myself, there's no reason why not. This was a good piece of writing. Absolutely. As opposed to my previous 20 novels, which were not so much so. And so that's the thing that I would say to an aspiring writer. If this is really a need of yours, then keep writing. Keep writing through every rejection. Read, find models, and don't be intimidated by great writing. Instead, understand why it's great. Read Nabokov. Read one of my favorites, the poor guy, John Kennedy Toole. John Kennedy Toole, you know his story?
I don't.
That was a classic story of a rejected writer. This guy wrote things. This guy wrote a novel, which he thought was incredible, but he could not get it published. And the fact that it was published was due not to his persistence, but the persistence, this is going to sound really kind of creepy, the persistence of his mother.
Okay, that involves some explaining there, Tim.
Well,
what do you
his
mean?
mother, I'm going to get to the punchline in a minute.
Okay.
His mother would carry this manuscript around in an old shopping bag. And one day she confronted the great Southern writer, Walker Percy. And Percy was a very sweet guy. He was a physician who had become a novelist, and he was very generous with his time. And so she kind of got him in his dressing room after a speech. And so he said, all right, I'll take a look at it. Because he figured he'd read the first paragraph and say, I'm sorry, this isn't publishable. Instead, he was interested, and he read on, and he realized that he had come across a great novel. And he worked to get it published with his publisher, and it won the National Book Award.
That's amazing.
Well, here's the sad part, though. John Kennedy Toole wasn't around to receive it because a couple of years back, discouraged as he was, he parked his car and put a hose around his exhaust pipe.
Oh, no.
And put the other end in his back window and pushed on the gas. And that was the end of him. So don't be John Kennedy Toole.
Exactly.
Write like him, learn from his writing, but persist even in the face of rejection.
That's terrific advice, because I've heard from many professional writers, and I know you and I have lived through this. There are days you don't want to see the computer. There are days when we give up on the computer and we use pen and pencil and we don't want any paper. And there are days that we just walk around. My friends all tease me. I have something called the freak out frog. And it is a stuffed frog that is the most ridiculous looking thing you've ever seen. Colors and tie-dyed and everything else. And one day when I was writing, I decided I needed inspiration, and I went to a bookstore where I called a friend of mine and I said, there are books in here. Everybody else finished all their books. I'm not done with my book. I'm on deadline, and these people have all finished their books. And she said, Jodi, back away from the store. Look, there should be a red exit sign. Follow the sign. And I said, and the store even sells stuffed animals. Even the people who made the stuffed animals finished the stuffed animals. So I bought the frog to remind me not to freak out.
Yeah.
Eventually it will be done.
You bring up a good point. And
it ends sometimes, yes.
Yeah. There may be the case, it may be the case you're sitting at your computer and you're writing your story.
Yes.
And you're saying, God, this is awful. How could I write this junk?
Exactly.
This
How
dreck?
could it be so bad? Yes.
Oh, I want to stop. That's all right. Write through it. You can fix it up in editing. You'll be editing a long time. Lee and I exchanged 10 drafts before we were prepared to show this to Diane. It took a year.
Yes.
That's not the original writing. That's not even my original treatment of Lee's writing. That's going back and forth, improving it each time.
Yes.
Now, Lee was a tremendous person to work with. Usually your experience will be that you're working with you. So you've got to be your own Lee. I do recommend finding a good writers group, working with other people who are working on the same project. I worked with 2 writers groups, not with this, but with another project I was doing.
Which are those?
Well,
Can you name them? Or?
Well, they don't have formal names.
Okay, just groups of, okay.
Yeah, there was one that I that shared a class I took at the Bethesda Writers Center, and most of the students from that class decided to carry on with the writers group. There was another that I met through the Washington Independent Writers, and they essentially had the same orientation. The group from the Writers Center I found particularly helpful, and I was with them for almost 3 years.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Now here's the loaded question.
Go ahead.
Because I understand there are apparently 2 styles of writing. One is the people who are very disciplined and sit down at their computer the same time every day and write for a certain number of hours, and the others who are the ones who wake up in the middle of the night because that's when the book hit them. Which are you?
Well, at this point, which is pretty much 40 years after I started writing, I'm a little more disciplined than I was, because the thought of my story is with me all the time.
That's true. I find that too, yes.
Yeah, and you're an experienced writer, and you've gone through this for a while, and you know the tools of discipline that help you write when you can, when you want to. The need to write must course through your veins, or really you should find some other way to express yourself creatively.
Yes.
But if that need to write runs through your veins, then make it a part of your everyday life. I have kind of a demanding day job, and I cannot really spend that time writing, but the story is never away from me. And when I write, which tends to be in the morning, I can summon my thoughts and my imagination to the task. That's a discipline that all aspiring writers, I think, should cultivate.
to carry the story with you all the time,
Yeah.
to sit down and get it out. Well, we have about 3 minutes left. What's your favorite part of the book? Let's bring it back to Capital City for a moment.
Well, this is
And I know it's like asking which is your favorite
Yeah.
child, but yes.
I'm gonna tell you this, and it's kind of a side plot, and it was one that our publisher suggested. He didn't suggest the side plot, but he says, I want to see more of Mayor Watson politically.
Okay.
So I devised a side plot in which he conspires with a mutually useful Republican to put DC statehood on the table in exchange for an additional representative for the Republicans' home state of Utah.
Oh, interesting.
This is
Okay,
actually
explain that.
something which came up several years later, but the idea was that Watson and the senator made a career out of bashing each other.
But then they became
for their
friends.
constituencies,
Right.
but behind the scenes would meet and drink bourbon and listen to the blues, which they both liked, and talk about history, which they were both interested in. And in those confines, he crafts this plan, and he says we don't actually have to have statehood. Of voting for our representative will do the trick, but it's something that I want the mayor's chosen successor to be behind, so he can take credit for it and advance his political career himself.
I love it.
So it was a lot of fun to write, a lot of fun to imagine what the Utah senator was thinking,
Yes.
and how it all falls apart.
I love it. And on that note, let's spend a couple of seconds talking about every place we can find your book.
Yes, all right.
Let's see if you can remember them all. Go ahead.
Yeah. Electronically, you can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Politics and Prose, of course, also has a website, and they'll send it to you. On the ground, Books A Million is carrying it. I know I had a book signing in my home, Books A Million in Waldorf.
Okay, great.
Politics and Prose, it's available there too. There may be other places, but I'm not aware of it right now.
Perfect. Tim, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you.